After Adam and Eve were exiled from the Garden of Eden, they began a new life, a life of hardship and labor. Soon, they had their first son, Cain, whose name means to acquire. Eve was overjoyed, saying, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Not long after, their second son, Abel, was born. Abel's name means breath or vapor, perhaps hinting at the fleeting nature of his life. As the boys grew, they chose different paths. Cain became a farmer, a tiller of the ground, working the very soil that was cursed after the fall. He spent his days cultivating crops, wrestling with thorns and thistles to bring forth a harvest. Abel, on the other hand, became a shepherd, a keeper of flocks. He moved with the seasons, caring for the sheep and living a more nomadic life. Both brothers worked hard, each contributing to the family's survival in their own way. The time came for them to present an offering to God. This was a significant moment, an act of worship and recognition of God's sovereignty. Cain brought an offering from the fruit of the ground produce he had labored to grow. Abel, in turn, brought the firstborn of his flock, specifically the fat portions, which were considered the best parts. Now, here's where the story takes a critical turn. The Bible tells us that the Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. This raises a huge question. Why? Why was one offering accepted and the other rejected? The text doesn't explicitly state the reason, but we can find clues. Some scholars believe it was about the nature of the offering. Abel brought a blood sacrifice, the firstborn of his flock, which foreshadows the later sacrificial system established under Moses and ultimately points to the sacrifice of Christ. Cain, however, brought produce. This view suggests that without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins. Another perspective focuses not just on what was offered, but on the heart of the one offering it. The New Testament book of Hebrews says, "By faith Abel offered God a better sacrifice than Cain did." This implies the difference was in their attitude, their faith. Abel offered his best, the firstborn and the fat portions, with a heart of genuine faith and reverence. Cain's offering, perhaps, was given out of mere obligation or with a less than sincere heart. He brought some of the fruits of the soil, which doesn't sound quite as generous as Abel's fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The issue wasn't the gift itself, but the giver. God's rejection of his offering made Cain very angry, and his face was downcast. His pride was wounded, his efforts felt unappreciated, and jealousy began to fester in his heart. But God, in his mercy, didn't just abandon Cain in his anger. He approached him, giving him a chance to repent and make things right. God asked Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." This is a profound moment. It's the first time the word sign is mentioned in the Bible, and it's personified as a predator, a beast crouching, waiting to pounce. God's words are both a warning and an encouragement. He warns Cain about the danger of letting sin take control, but he also affirms Cain's ability to overcome it. He says, "You must rule over it." Cain had a choice. He could master his anger, his jealousy, and his pride, or he could let them master him. This is a struggle we all face. The feelings of rejection, envy, and bitterness, these are the crouching sins at our own doors. God's question to Cain echoes through the ages to us. Why are you angry? He invites us to self-examination, to look inward and deal with the root of our negative emotions before they lead to destructive actions. Tragically, Cain did not heed God's warning. He chose not to rule over his sin. Instead, he let it consume him. He invited his brother Abel into the field, and there, in a place that should have been a symbol of his life's work, Cain attacked his brother and killed him. The first human born on earth became the first murderer. The first death recorded was not from old age or an accident, but from an act of fratricide, brother killing brother. This act was the horrifying fruit of the seed of sin that entered the world through Adam and Eve's disobedience. The fall wasn't just a one-time event. It had ongoing, devastating consequences. The harmony that once existed was shattered, and the first family was torn apart by jealousy and violence. After the murder, God confronted Cain again. He asked, "Where is your brother Abel?" This question wasn't because God didn't know. It was another opportunity for Cain to confess, to take responsibility. But Cain's heart had hardened completely. He responded with a defiant lie, a question that has become infamous. "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" This response reveals the depth of Cain's alienation from his brother, from God, and from his own humanity. Yes, Cain, you are your brother's keeper. We are all keepers of our brothers and sisters. His cynical question is a denial of the fundamental human responsibility we have to care for one another. God then pronounced Cain's sentence. "What have you done? Listen. Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. The very ground that Cain worked, the ground that received Abel's innocent blood, now testified against him. The curse was directly tied to his sin and his profession. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." Cain's punishment was to be severed from his community and from his livelihood. He who had been a tiller of the ground would now find the ground hostile to him. He who had a home would now be a wanderer, forever restless. This wasn't just a physical punishment. It was a deep spiritual and social exile. Cain's reaction to his sentence is telling. He cried out, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." Notice his focus, my punishment. There's no remorse for killing his brother, only self-pity and fear for his own life. He was concerned about the consequences of his sin, not the sin itself. He mourned his separation from the land and from God's protective presence, and he feared retribution. Even in this dark moment, God showed a measure of mercy. He didn't strike Cain down. Instead, he put a mark on Cain, not as a badge of shame, but as a sign of protection, so that no one who found him would kill him. God preserved his life, even though Cain had taken another's. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. The name Nod means wandering, perfectly describing his cursed existence. He went on to build a city and have a family, but his lineage is marked by increasing violence and arrogance, culminating in his descendant Lamech, who boasted of killing a man and declared a 77-fold vengeance. The story of Cain and Abel is a somber tale, but it's packed with timeless lessons. It's the first test of the human heart after the fall, and it shows just how quickly sin can escalate from a feeling jealousy to a thought, and finally to a devastating act. It teaches us about the importance of giving our best to God, not just in our actions, but with a heart of genuine faith. It warns us to be vigilant against the sin crouching at our own doors, the anger, envy, and pride that desire to master us. And it reminds us of our sacred responsibility to be our brother's keeper, to care for one another, and to choose love over hate and reconciliation over violence. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more explorations into these ancient and powerful narratives. See you next time.